In today's video, I wanted to share with you my experience at riding my first national. This was in Tennessee at the Trials Training Center, and you guys probably on this channel have seen footage of the pro lines that I've put up, some other videos, but in this one, I want to take my time and talk a little bit more about riding the Clubman line. I know most of my viewing audience is like between 40 and 60-year-old men learning trials later in life, and in all honesty, none of us are probably going to become pro riders. So as much fun as it is and entertaining to watch the pros, I'm going to try and give you guys some tips and insight as relates to the things that I learned and took away from this. And I'm going to do it in two different forms. So one of which is going to be as a rider, riding through, and the other is going to be as a videographer, filming. But the three lessons or the 3 points that I have are much the same. Now, this event was very warm, and my goals on Saturday were to stay injury-free, to stay ahead of nutrition and hydration, to just enjoy the experience, soak it in, to focus on each section, each turn, be 100% focused, mind inside the tape at all time. And then also to incorporate my faith in Jesus and my riding, to forgive my mistakes, to focus on the positive, enjoy being outside in creation, and to be kind to others. And then finally to be satisfied with my riding, not necessarily my finishing position. Now, all of those I accomplished on Saturday, and I felt really good. My first loop for the first 11 sections, I was completely riding clean. I hadn't put my foot down at all. Then here comes a little bit of humble pie right in front of the crowd at section 12. I didn't want to go too fast over these rocks, and so I put my front tire down in a hole and wound up going over the bars. Took a 5 right there, and it wound up knocking me off the podium. But I realized after finishing 4th how close I was to being able to get a 3rd place or above finish. So my goals for Sunday changed a little bit. I wanted to still make sure I stayed ahead of nutrition because I did get some hand cramps on Saturday, but then to also get on the podium. So I only really had 2 goals going into Sunday, which probably wasn't the best thing to focus on. Oftentimes when we focus on riding better than other people, those are things that we can't control. And so my game plan shifted, and I think my concentration suffered. I definitely took more points. I had more fun. My nutrition was more on point, but at the same time, I didn't perform quite as well. So the 3 things I want to share with you guys are line choice, ground speed, and body positioning on the bike. Those 3 things as a Clubman rider potentially make the most impact. Now, I'm going to talk about those as they relate to riding, and then introduce you to Hannah Smage and talk about them as it relates to filming. Now, the first one, line choice. Studying the terrain, the gates, what's the best path to take. A lot of you guys are familiar with this as it relates to walking sections. That's definitely what Clubmen tend to focus on a lot. The next is going to be how fast did they go through? What was their ground speed or their momentum? Before going up a ledge, a ride up, a lot of times we're listening to that RPM, seeing what they're doing. Are they just rolling through a rock garden? Are they controlled, really going slow? So we sometimes watch that, but most of the time we're just focused on their path of travel. Now, the last portion as it relates to body position is something that easily gets forgotten about. A lot of people don't talk about this as much. So when someone else is riding, what are they doing with their body and when? What technique are they using? Are they touching the front? Are they just riding right up? Usually in all the Clubman lines, it's just a ride up. Sometimes there's a double blip mixed in, so the techniques aren't necessarily something that we focus on. We fail to see where their hips are, how far back they got, where their knees are bending, especially if they want to do a wheelie. When are they bending their knees in the section in order to then snap those knees back to pull the wheelie? Now, a lot of times it's hard to know what your body positioning is doing. And so we can either learn body position from internal feedback or external feedback. So I'm going to talk about that for just a moment. External feedback usually comes from a coach or someone who really knows what they're doing watching you. Now, a lot of times it's hard to get people to tell you what to do. I have found Ray Peters has helped me a ton. He's really good at telling me how I've screwed things up. He's the best I know as it relates to body positioning, and I trust what he's talking about. I've worked on one-handed turns and how to stay centered on the bike and got a lot out of my time working with him. You can also gain a lot from external feedback by watching video of yourself. If you record yourself, there's no substitute. The pixels don't lie. You can study the film, especially if you compare it to other riders from the same camera angle, and then compare how you're riding to theirs and see what you need to work on. Now, stay with me because this is where I'm going to lose some of you. You can also learn from internal feedback. I did a full interview with Chris Bazzelli, and he talked about these kind of different aspects of external and internal. And Josh Roper and I, we talked about this. What did it feel like? Was I balanced? Was I in the center of the bike? Was I pulling on the bars? Another thing to think about is what part of my body is sore or tired. getting internal feedback in the moment can be really hard because usually your brain is at max capacity. You know, your concentration is filled up, this aperture of attention is focusing on getting through the section, not missing any gates, your line choice. So oftentimes it's hard to remember how to move or hold your body. That's why you're going to hear minders say things like, look up, or a lot of times they'll say, you know, use your legs, because they're trying to remind us with an external feedback how to ride in the proper body position. Now there's one more way to practice this kind of body positioning, and that's really interesting. I've never heard of this before, but my friend Abigail Bazzelli introduced me to something called sympathetic movement. And the idea is simply ghosting somebody else's movements. So when a rider is moving through a section while we're standing there watching, we can also think through, how do I want to bend my knees? Where do I want my hips? So this idea is similar to like what a baseball player might do if they're on deck. They would swing their bat at the same pace as the batter who's actually up there. They're moving in time with that person who's moving. So you're not really riding the section, but in your brain, you're thinking through how you would move it. Now you can see here in this video, Abigail's knees and hips are moving like crazy. I got a great angle of her kind of coming across. This is a sportsman line, and she's got a lot going on here, but it just looks like she's riding smooth through the section. This would be a great example of a time that would make sense to kind of move in time with what they're moving. And you'll see her do this again as she's watching Mika Lonsdale ride this section. I'm going to put a pin in this and come back to this sympathetic movement later, because it's something I want to spend some time on, and I think a full interview with Abigail would benefit all of you guys. In the meantime, I finished both days and had a lot of fun, and I had time to film because after riding, the pros in the other lines started later. There's 137 riders at this event. Each one left 1 minute after another.
Only Jeremy Hadley's like, yeah, video, cleaned it.
So once I got done, I still had about 3 hours to film, and that's where things got fun for me because I was still learning those three things: line choice, speed, and body positioning, but now as a videographer. The first of which, line choice, how far or close and where to film from. Now the second one, speed, getting from one section to the next is very challenging, and it really helps to have someone who knows their way around. And this is where Hannah Smage was so helpful. I said, hey, do you mind if I hang out with you?
Out here hiking the trails with Hannah Smage. She knows all the shortcuts to get from section to section. So my riding's done, and now we're chasing the pros filming, and I'm learning where to stand and how to take video from a pro. Having a good time.
Pro?
Yeah, pro videographer.
Thanks.
Yeah.
She's one of the nicest people, and so we wound up videoing together, and I was able to go from one section to the next with her. She knows her way around. She even said, oh, if you want to get footage of the pros, we've got to skip section 4. We can go right to section 6 because they'll be riding through, and this will be faster, and we'll be sure to film them. Okay, whatever you say. She knew how to get from one section to the next, and that was very integral to our ability to capture the riders. Now, lastly, body positioning. Getting different angles. You'll watch Hannah get low in order to capture video of the tires and where the rider is riding. That difference is huge as it relates to watching a video of someone who might just be, you know, an amateur filming other people versus someone who really knows what they're doing. Now, it's hard to move and film for a lot of people. Stepping on these rocks in this type of terrain is not for the faint of heart. You can definitely get hurt. But if you're able to move and move in a position to get the shot, it goes a long way. Now, Hannah's got a minder pass, so she's able to get into the section with the other riders. I don't have that, but you can see here she's really getting close up to know how to film and get the most that you can from where we are in the section. Now, my call to action is going to be a little twofold part. For most of you that are riding, I would encourage you to pay attention to your body positioning. Start exploring the idea of sympathetic movement and figuring out how to bend your knees at the right time in order to smoothly ride over rocks. Take out your cell phone and video yourself and learn, am I riding this in the correct body positioning? The second part is go thank your YouTube people that you like to watch. The Smages wind up filming and editing for both FactoryOne page as well as the NATC YouTube page. Just go down there and say thank you. You know, it's amazing. People watch these videos, thousands and thousands of views, and only like 1 or 2 people says thanks for putting out what you do. Do you realize that Pat Smage, after riding, has to go through and edit hundreds and hundreds, maybe even thousands of clips of people riding, trim those down into just these little highlights, put all that together, and then Hannah's running around trying to capture all this. So they put in a ton of time and energy and work capturing these things for you guys to ride. I'm gonna go ahead and put descriptions down below of their channels so that you can quickly access the content that they're putting out. Jump on there and say thank you, Smages, for all that you're putting out. It really makes a big deal. All right, thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next video.